I'm going to have a look at a really common problem with these models of Elna Supermatic machines. The little wheel on the front here for adjusting the needle centralization, it often becomes stuck or seized up. You should be able to turn this little wheel here. We'll get a close look at this in a second. So this model here, this is the TSP model, and we've got a SP or special model here, and here we've got the SU model. This is the manual for the TSP, and one of the reasons you would want to use this wheel, the needle centralization wheel, is for a no-turn buttonhole, and you can see it listed here, item number 3 here, position the needle to the left, and you can see the needle moving back and forward there. So we're on straight stitch. If I move it to the left, you'll see the needle just pops up and down on the left like that. Come across to the center, around the center there, and to the right. We're on the right side there. You'd also use this wheel if you were doing things like installing zippers or things like that, where you need to get the needle closer to the maybe the edge of the teeth of the zipper there. There's a couple of reasons why you'd want to use that, and often they become seized up because sometimes people just don't use them. So when the machine's been sitting for a while, these here will just seize completely. You can still use the machine, it'll still work perfectly well in straight stitches and your zigzag and other operations, but your no-turn buttonholes will be a problem. This machine doesn't do a no-turn buttonhole, but if you were doing zippers or you wanted to get close to a seam or something like that. Yeah, sorry about the state of these machines. These are just machines that I have in my collection that I haven't really gone through. Some of them are just for parts. Some of them I'm looking to do up and keep in the collection. Let's have a look at the TSP here. That one I can turn. It's very stiff though. So if that was left to sit for a long period of time, that would just completely lock up there. And if we take a look at the SP, the special here, yeah, that one's really tight. So today I'll be showing you how to fix this problem with the seized up dials. The SP here, that one's okay, but it's a little bit tight. You may be able to see little lines there. That could be where someone's tried to sort of force the wheel around with maybe something sharp or a screwdriver or something like that. Yeah, you can see it needs a good clean too. I'll go through and do that. I'll put the SU and the TSP aside. We'll work on the this problem child here, the special. Yeah, that one is extremely tight. That's not going. I can just move it. I don't want to force it too much. First of all, remove the lid, 2 screws. Just be careful when you're taking the lid off this particular model. There's a slot here. Pull that forward through so that that lever there comes out through the slot there. So we're looking down on top of the machine here with the lid removed, and you can see that the wheel just juts out the front there. It's designed so that you can put your thumb on it or finger and just easily turn it. And you can see that the wheel comes right around in here. Now there's a shaft that heads down. You might see the in the center there's a little black shaft that heads down into a bearing. I've got a unit here that I've removed from a machine to make it easier to see. Excuse the condition of it. It's come out of a parts machine. So if we have a look, we're looking down here. This is the part that juts out the front of the machine. If we have a look underneath here, we'll see where the bearing is there. So the shaft runs straight down through here, and you can see the bottom of the shaft here. And if I turn this one's nice and free, you'll see the shaft turning there. And that's where we need to try and get lubricant into. And onto this area here, so that the lubricant gets onto the shaft, and that, you know, that just gravity pulls the lubricant down into this shaft here, into this bearing. You start by putting a penetrating oil on there, something such as WD-40 or CRC, and you know, that gradually works its way in. We'll use a little bit of heat as well, but what can happen is these can get quite gummed up, and the oils and whatnot don't really do much to move the you know, the gummed up the gunk in there, really. Yeah, so you know, sometimes this whole unit here has to come out of the machine to do this properly, but generally you can get it so that it's good enough and easy enough to turn nice and freely. If you do have to take this whole unit out of the machine, it's a bit of a faff, but it can be done. So if you end up taking this out, you can get to things easily here. There will be a little clip, an E-clip on here. I think it's an E-clip or some sort of circlip on here holding this here. You remove the clip, and then you can just go ahead and, you know, work that out. Just remove this whole wheel here. I'm just pulling it in this direction here as I turn it, and then you can clean the shaft, clean the bearing surface, and reinstall the wheel there, and then push it right down and reinstall the clip there, and you know, that's fairly drastic. Today we want to try and get this done in situ, so we don't have to take all this mechanism out here. We don't really want to be removing the Elna graph unit if possible. It's quite a bit of work to do that, so we want to try and do this in situ. So you could go and spray penetrating oil around in this area, but just the way that this is designed, we really want to get the oil in underneath this wheel here. So if we take a look at this one again, if we just drop oil down on top of this, it's really not going to get down and into this bearing here. We want to get right down into this bearing. So what we end up doing is we tilt the machine up on its end, so we get into this orientation here, and that allows us to drop lubricant down the back of the wheel there. Effectively, we're looking at this here. We're looking to get the lubricant down the back of the wheel and onto that shaft there, and also onto the bottom of the shaft as well. We want to try and get lubricant on both ends of that shaft, and then we want to try and work that lubricant in. In this orientation here, we can do that. This is CRC 556 penetrating oil. It's a very lightweight oil that is designed to seep into very tight, fine places and unseize and, you know, free things up. So I'll be dripping oil down the back of this wheel and also down to the bottom of the shaft there. Just want to drip it so that it gets to those points there. And at that point you could leave it to soak for a bit. I don't know how long it would take, or whether it would soak in very well, you know, without applying heat. I'll be applying a bit of heat here. We've got to be careful doing that. I guess if you left it for long enough, the penetrating oil might get right through into the bearing. It's hard to say really whether it would or not. What I'll be doing next to speed up the process, you can see the mounting screw hole here is where this screw here is going through, and we've got a plate, that's this plate here. So I want to apply heat to this area. I mean, ideally I'd like to get heat right onto this bearing here, but it's not really possible from any angle, you know, directly, not easily anyway. So what I'll be doing is I'll be applying heat to this area here where the mounting screw is, and the heat will come along the plate and into this bearing here. So I'll be directing the heat to this area here, whilst avoiding this plastic wheel here. We definitely don't want to be putting any heat around here. Now I'm going to be using this heat gun here. This is really designed for, you know, electronics, really, for desoldering chips, and oh, you can use it for general heating as well. So you can see it's got a reasonably fine nozzle there on this unit, and I'll be using that to direct heat directly onto this area here, and I can do that you know, reasonably easily with this nozzle. So if you don't have one of these heat guns, you know, a lot of people wouldn't have these heat guns. You probably get away with a hairdryer maybe, just to warm this area, but you want to protect this wheel. You don't want to be putting too much heat onto that. You may want to make up some sort of shield around this to deflect heat away so that this doesn't melt. I've seen situations where these have melted, and the other temptation also is to get a pair of pliers, you know, and not even bother with heat or lubricant and just try and turn this. I tried that really early on when I was experimenting with this sort of thing on an old parts machine, and I actually broke the wheel. So that, you know, that's not a good option. It just puts too much force on it. Definitely lubricant and heat is the answer. The other option is to if you are using a hairdryer, you just need to be really careful not to overheat anything here. You know, when I say, you know, use a hairdryer, just be very, very careful. You just want to get it to a heat where you know, it's not too hot to touch, really. You know, that's probably, you wouldn't want to go much further than that. Yeah. So just, yeah, check it every so often to make sure it's not getting too hot. If you're using a hairdryer, you could actually direct the heat to the underside of the arm here, close to the wheel area. Just to direct the hairdryer in this area, just to heat this area here, and the heat's going to come up through where this mounting screw is and along this plate to the bearing. While you're heating with the hairdryer on the back, you could hold your finger in here just to get a feel for how hot it is, and when it starts getting quite hot to the touch, you know, not burning hot but quite hot to the touch, remove the heat and then work away at the wheel like I'm going to show you, except I'll be using the heat gun here. So I'm going for a reasonably high heat here. You don't have to have it that high. I'll drop it 350, that's Celsius. This is the blower here, so you can increase the blower pressure. I've got it down on about 6 there. As I say, you may not have these tools, but hairdryer will suffice at a pinch. So I want to be careful here not to, you know, touch this cable over here on the side of this, and I also want to direct the air down onto here but not heat this plastic here. And also have yourself a piece of fabric nearby, because you'll be working this wheel back and forward here, trying to work this back and forward until it starts to free up. And trust me, I've done it without a rag and ended up with blisters on finger and thumb doing this, and it doesn't take long for those blisters to form. So I'll be putting the rag over the wheel here with fingers and thumbs in here and just using that to turn. So yeah, just remember that basically what I'm doing is turning this here. Okay, let's start here by just heating this area here, and I'm going to be feeling on the back of the machine here just to get an indication of how hot it's actually getting there. So if I wanted to speed this process up, I could increase the temperature of the heat gun. It's quite cold here today, so this machine is actually pretty cold. So the heat's being drawn away. Okay, it's getting quite warm there. And then we can just work away. Yeah, that's free. free as anything now. Well, not free as anything, not quite as free as it should be. Free enough to move with a, you know, a thumb. So that actually didn't take too much. You know, sometimes that can take a while to free up. A lot of heating, more oil, more heating. The true, sorry about that noise, it's just the heat gun cooling down. The true test for this is to let the machine cool again, and you'll notice this a lot in a cooler climate in winter. So you know, here it's not quite winter, but it's getting pretty cold outside, and this machine was out in my car, so you know, it nearly froze overnight last night. We nearly had a frost, so this machine was pretty cold. So what you'd do is you'd let that cool down again, and quite often what can happen is the wheel can tighten up again when it gets cold, and that if it does that, you just basically go through this process again until it is free when it's cool. It's quite difficult to get them to the point where you can, you know, spin it, you know, really easily like this one. Yeah, I think as long as you can adjust this relatively easily, it's probably okay. And while you're there, you can give the wheel a clean. Give that a good clean up. I won't go too crazy with that at this stage. Molly's turned up. Say hello to everyone. She is so distracting sometimes, especially when I'm trying to work. She just wants smooches or food, don't you? You got another donation, didn't you? Another one. Thanks to Cheryl and Harry. Where is it? Where is here? Look. What's that? Look. Look what you got. What's this? Here. Look at this. Here, have a sniff. What's that? Look what you got. Ooh. She's quite keen on that one. Hey? Oh. Righto. Oh, look at that. Yeah, she loves it. Right, I'll just be back in a second. I'll go and feed the cat. Yeah, that's cooled off a bit. It's still reasonably free. I'd probably work on that a little bit more. So basically I'll just rinse and repeat really until I get that to the point where I'm happy with it. Apply some more heat. Yeah, it's getting quite free there now. If you do this, if you lubricate it and apply a bit of heat and you find it's still really stiff, just make sure you don't force the wheel with anything. Don't force it too much. Just maybe give it some time for the lubricants. You know, let the heat sort of get in there. Be patient with it really. But yeah, that's pretty good there now. Go ahead and we'll put the lid back on. Just again, careful of the lever here. Make sure it goes in through the slot there. So that's it for this one. I hope you found that helpful, and thank you again to my patrons on Patreon. Thank you very much for supporting the channel, and to all you out there watching this, thank you very much for watching. You want it, don't you? You want it. Oh. Here you go. Yep, it's a hit. Thanks again, Cheryl and Harry. Molly loves you. Oh, this YouTubing's very thirsty work.